I don't know if fitting is the best example. Maybe ironic that we're doing this podcast on Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
true.
Or that PJ thought this would be a good idea on Valentine's Day.
It gets associated more so with like romantic comedies and things. If you're in a real relationship, we all know it's not a romantic comedy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Done Lite, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, 530 Frederica Street at the high-rise White Tower. And today is a very special day, PJ. It is Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
So have you already gotten your wife a Valentine's gift?
If I'm being honest, no. But
Well,
here's
you still
the
have
thing.
time.
No, well, here's my excuse. She's Jehovah's Witness. They don't ever celebrate holidays. So when the holidays that come around, that is something that they don't necessarily not celebrate, I say, well, I don't think about holidays anymore because all the major ones have been taken away from me.
There you go. I just got confused on which ones are covered, and it's my bad.
Yeah,
right?
it's mainly Christmas and Halloween.
So,
My two favorites.
Hey, today Tyler Johnson is with us.
Hello.
And Tyler is a new partner at Foreman Watson Holtry, but actually was with Foreman Watson before there was Holtry. Tyler, when did you start with Foreman Watson with Jeff and Jim?
Oh, right before I got my bar exam results back, so sometime in 2008.
Okay, and you were Tyler was raised in Owensboro, Kentucky, graduated from Owensboro High School in the same graduating class as you, PJ.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
graduated together.
And then from there went to play football at Georgetown College in Georgetown, Kentucky. And what was your major in college? I don't even know if I know.
Political
that.
science.
See, I inherited Tyler. I didn't hire him, so I just know the important things, like he played defensive back on a national championship football team. Is that correct?
Two
national championship football teams.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you knew this, PJ, but we have a national champion in our presence, Tyler Johnson.
Awesome.
So
I can bring my rings in for you to kiss them if you want.
I was
bling.
going to say, it's nice to see that whole football thing really panned out for
Yeah,
you.
they weren't looking for a bunch of 5'10", 150-pound slow defensive backs in the NFL.
But so Tyler does bring with him the competitive edge, obviously, from being a competitor in high school and college. But then from there decided he was going to practice law. His dad was a lawyer.
Still is.
And still is. That's right. Jerry still practices here in Owensboro. And Tyler went to Cooley Law School in Michigan.
Yep.
And then, as you heard, came to Owensboro, came back home, and threw his hat in the ring. And he and I have practiced law together now. I've been here since 2011, and Tyler and I have litigated a lot of interesting cases together.
Quite a few.
But Tyler also has a side of his practice that all I do is I don't practice it with him. I just hear him bitch about it, and it's family
often.
law. And so we thought it would be fitting, PJ, your idea, that since today is Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of commercialization of this idea of love and romance, but
Right.
the reality is that in the practice of law, we often see the other side of it.
I don't know if fitting is the best example. Maybe ironic that we're doing this podcast on Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
True.
Or that PJ thought this would be a good idea on Valentine's Day. I don't know if that tells us anything about.
Well, I think when people think of Valentine's Day, it gets associated more so with like romantic comedies and things. And let's face it, if you're in a real relationship, we all know it's not a romantic comedy. Relationships are something you have to work on them.
That's right.
You have to. It's not something that even if it's love at first sight, it's still eventually you still have to keep working to make things pay off in the end.
Meaning like pay off in the end when
Not
you
financially.
die. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that when you die, you don't die alone.
Okay. I was just trying to clarify.
I guess the first thing is the whole idea of the dissolution, the ending of a marriage, the undoing of a marriage, costly endeavor.
Oh, sure. I mean, sometimes more so than others, but that's the first big shock to a lot of people is how much it costs for you to get divorced. Not only hiring an attorney, but in most cases, a lot of your assets are going to be divided. Some people are essentially starting over or in a worse position than they were before they got married. So
Right. And so you have the division of property and the cost of hiring counsel, but then emotionally, these things are charged most of the time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's the rare occasion where people are able to, they've just gone in different directions in their lives and are able to amicably split up, and that happens, not as often as the other, but my goal in every case is to settle a divorce case. I mean, I tell people that it's like you don't want a judge telling you what to do with your forks and knives, and the judge doesn't want to split up forks and knives. So we try to reach a point where we can agree on how to split your stuff up, but sometimes it's not always successful, or there's differing opinions between lawyers as to what's equitable between the two parties. And then if there's children involved, that obviously adds a whole another layer.
From your experience, do you think that the monetary issue is more emotionally charged, or that the children, when it comes to the children, that's where the true emotional tearing and the hurt comes from?
Yeah, I mean, when there's, I tell people that there's two parts to every divorce case with children. One is, you're making a decision about your children and your family and how you're going to raise them and how your children are going to spend their time between two households. And the other stuff, you're making a business decision, and it's hard for some people to compartmentalize the emotional aspect of dealing with issues concerning their children and then making a sound business decision when dividing assets and debts. But yeah, the emotional side definitely is more intense when there's kids involved and there's some type of disagreement regarding the children.
Well, the other day we had and I don't know if you've heard it yet, but we had an episode where we were talking about food, and somewhere in that episode, PJ said,
PJ brought up the food. I'm sorry.
Speaking of divorce, food.
And this gets, so we were talking about food, and then we were talking about how much food there is at the office and how everybody around here just seems to kind of have a family and a family type environment and that kind of thing. And PJ said, yeah, we're all in pretty good moods except sometimes Tyler.
Yeah.
And I came to your rescue and said it's because that's only when he's hungry.
Yes.
Right.
Which
But
is often.
but there may be a little bit more truth to the thing. It may be because you also do a lot of family law.
Yeah, yeah. You try not to carry that stuff with you throughout the day or when you go home. But I remember one client. This had to be 5 or 6 years ago, and I can't say cuss words on this thing, right?
Well,
yeah,
we
I'll
don't have a
refrain.
good beeper.
I can beep them out if we have
that
to.
eliminates 90% of my storytelling because there's usually
Well, if you're quoting someone, it's different than if you were just like throwing them out there.
I'll clean it up a bit for this, but he's one of the things I do when I meet people for the first time. I just say, well, tell me what's going on. And I'll let them go and tell me the story. And a lot of times it's, this is why we're unhappy and we've got this going on and this going. And, he went on for 15 minutes or so. And, I'm taking notes and he gets done. He goes, man, is this what you do all day long, is just listen to people bitch? I said, well, a lot of it is. I would hate to have your job. And, if you think about it, like me too sometimes. I don't really want to listen to you all complain, but, it's part of it. You have to figure out what's going on in the case and what really caused them to get to that point to where they felt like they needed to see a lawyer.
One thing I don't think I've ever asked you is, like, people come, and one of the things you have to, I guess, swear to or at least plead and then agree to is that the marriage is irretrievably broken, or
irretrievably broken without hope of reconciliation, and counseling would be of no benefit.
And so my question is how many people have come to you and say, we have tried counseling, we've done all we can, versus the ones that are just go from married to I want a divorce?
I've gotten people divorced that have been married for over 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Some, are in their 80s. And there's a lot. I find that those older people have been in unhappy relationships for so long because you just don't get divorced. When they were married in the 60s, or even earlier than that. But people, younger people, I suppose, and I guess statistics would indicate too that you don't have to be unhappy, and divorce doesn't mean that you're completely getting out of that relationship. If you have children with that person, you're going to still be in their lives, and vice versa. But they're more accepting of the fact that we can end our marriage and still raise this child in a way, and then both of us can be happy, but happy because we're not together anymore. So I think it's more acceptable to people that are younger than others. And I don't even remember what the question was, so I'm not sure if I answered it.
No, I kind of. I was just, how many people go, if you have to say that it's irretrievably broken and counseling will make no difference, I mean, do people go through, come to you and say, hey, we've tried a lot of counseling?
Yeah. I mean, that's a question that I ask. If sometimes people are meeting with me for informational purposes, and they want to be, prepared in the event. And I'll ask them, if you've been to counseling. Sometimes they're in individual counseling and not marriage counseling. And I've had clients whose counselors have referred them to me. They're individual counselors, not their marriage counselors. But I've, quite a few have at least attempted. Sometimes one of the spouses will refuse to go or not want to go. The court actually has the authority to make people go. So if one person files for divorce and the other person denies the fact that their marriage is irretrievably broken, you can have what's called, or ask for, a conciliation conference, which is the judge ordering you to go to therapy, essentially.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often. I think in the 11 years I've been practicing, I've done it 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Now, are you saying that's when one person is like, I'm completely done, and then the other person is like, no, I think there's still something here to save?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it only takes one person to swear under oath that irretrievable breakdown of the marriage, and then the judge has to make a finding that it is, in fact, irretrievably broken. But if one person says, well, I'm going to call it timeout, I want to try to go to therapy, judge, will you send us? And I haven't had one that's been successful yet of those 3, but out of 2 of the 3, the judge has ordered a conciliation conference. They did go. I'm not sure what the level of participation was, but the counselor reported back that we don't think that it's going to be of any benefit to attend counseling.
Speaking of reconciliation, PJ, you may get a kick out of this. Like when I was in law school and coming out of law school, you kind of tried your hat at all different kinds of work. And I think I was involved in maybe 1.5 family law cases. And when I say half, I was like, I've had enough of this. But one of the jokes among lawyers is that you'll meet with somebody on a Thursday or Friday, and they are hell bent on getting a divorce and want to retain you, and I'm going to bring the money in on Monday. And then on Monday they cancel because they reconciled over the weekend.
Oh, sure.
But then about a month and a half later.
So if you are married with children, there's a 60-day cooling off period. Okay, so you file for divorce, serve the other party with papers, and even if you agree to everything, that same day you have a settlement agreement that's entered into, the judge cannot enter the decree of dissolution of marriage, which is the document that actually gets you divorced, for at least 60 days. It's just a statutory requirement. And sometimes you have to go to court to put on the proof to get people divorced. And there's another attorney in town, and I kept on telling him we needed to submit this decree. We're past the 60-day mark. But what he couldn't tell me at that time is that his client had divulged information to him. Separate means not only living separate apart, but no longer living together as husband and wife, which boils down to you're not having sex anymore. So he had information that these soon-to-be divorced people, the weekend before the 60 days were to run and we were to tender decree, had a little conciliation party and had sex, and we couldn't, by statute, get them divorced.
Right.
So I didn't learn that until after. I just thought he was being lazy and wasn't submitting the stuff to the court that needed to be submitted. But yeah, it happens. And some, file and it gets dismissed because they do get back together and work through whatever differences that they did have at the time. Some people have filed 3 and 4 times. We got one of those right now. Mm-hmm. So they've filed multiple times and got back together and are finally serious about it on the 4th or 5th attempt.
Wow.
I don't recommend that. I don't think
I'm
that's
thinking
a good
about
idea.
the no sex thing, and it's very possible I'm divorced.
Just by operation of
Yeah,
law, right?
No, I'm kidding. I'm very
Sorry,
much
Trina.
married.
Trina.
I might have to edit that out.
Now, PJ, no, you don't need to edit anything out.
He wants Trina to hear that joke.
PJ, do you remember a few episodes back we were talking about the effect that the holidays have on personal injury cases and how a lot of times insurance companies will make lowball offers and people will accept them because they need money for the holidays. But on the other hand, we've seen, so we discussed the effects of the holidays. Question, the effects, Tyler, of the holidays, especially Christmas time, on these actions or these relationships that are at different phases of the process, any effect on them?
Yeah, well, if cases that are already in existence and actively litigating divorce cases or custody cases, the holidays become a source of contention if there's not orders with enough specificity. Say that there was an order entered that was in May, and we haven't wrapped up the case by December, and we don't know what we're doing for Christmas. So that generates additional work around the holidays for lawyers when we haven't either planned that far in advance with our temporary orders, or there something comes up that wasn't expected at the time those orders were entered. The inverse is people that are thinking about getting a divorce or filing something adverse against someone who they used to love, is that they don't want to do it around the holidays. Nobody wants to file for divorce on December the 24th.
Right.
I think Valentine's Day is the same way. I actually have a divorce hearing today.
When I came up with the idea for this, for bringing you on to discuss this, because let's face it, for a Valentine's Day episode, part of me was like, man, this is a really dreary conversation.
Yeah, I felt the same.
But it's also it's a fact of life for a lot of people. And the thing is, people don't get divorced or get to the point of wanting a divorce overnight. It's something that happens gradually over time, unless you quickly get married and then realize you made a total mistake and you automatically hate the person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People come to you and they're explaining the situation. What is most commonly, because there may be people listening to this who are going through a troubled time in their relationship, maybe not necessarily to the point of saying, hey, let's get a divorce, but what would you say are some of the most common warning signs or problems that couples deal with that brings them to the point of saying, you know what, this is just not going to work?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to ask because every situation is really unique to those individual people because you're dealing with people, right? So
it's a podcast. We got all day.
Right. But communication is a big thing. So, despite whatever their differences are, whether it be, they're spending too much money or infidelity or whatever, what leads up to those blow-ups is the lack of addressing the issues before they become so big that, they're relationship enders, right? So the ability to effectively communicate with your partner or the inability to do so leads to a lot of divorces. So I've told people that have come and met with me, it's like, you're not ready to get divorced. You need to go have a conversation with your partner and talk about it. And I recommend you go to counseling. But I've told people I'm not going to file, and you can go to somebody else, but I'm not going to do it. And I know of other attorneys in town that would do the same thing,
right?
Because it's not something we take lightly. And out of respect for the client, even if I'm not getting paid because they're not filing for divorce, I'll tell them you're not ready. You need to go back and work on your relationship. It's not time.
Before I started working here, there was you always hear that stigma with attorneys, which is they're ambulance chasers when it comes to like personal injury. and I've made jokes and stuff like that too myself, but I didn't necessarily believe it. I didn't know anything about how attorneys work or how the law works. But then when I started working here, it's that stigma for me, that idea of what an attorney really is, went away because I saw the inside of how it happens and how much, they care and that kind of a thing. So it's same thing. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear someone say, well, if they would assume if divorce, and I hate to say it this way, if divorce is your bread and butter.
Yeah, you don't want to,
that's job security,
you don't
right? But the
bite
reality
the hand
is,
that feeds you.
Just like them, you're a human being and you have emotions. So you don't want people to get a divorce just so you can get paid.
No.
So I think that's probably a very positive thing that comes out of this. This whole episode is that it shows people the real side of grumpy Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
It's not where we were headed with this, Tyler.
Right. But since we're here,
I'm pick on Tyler.
I'm kidding. I started up here, and then I'm still waiting for the Trina to hear the joke.
You're gonna really be sorry you asked for this episode because we are not letting you edit that out.
Trina, I'll give you my personal cell phone number
and a good deal.
Right.
I'll be honest with you right now. Trina and I have gone to therapy before.
Sure.
Because
I think everybody should go.
Yeah.
Regardless as to whether or not you're having problems or not.
Right. It worked for us. Trina couldn't realize that she was very wrong, and it took a professional to make her understand. So
we now have two things you better consider editing that we're not going to let you edit out.
Your bill for roses on Valentine's Day is going to be astronomical.
It's going to have to be chocolate strawberry.
Right. You're probably going to be getting a text from her saying, "Who do you recommend since you can't represent me?"
In all honesty, she hates when I make these kinds of jokes. So I'm in trouble when this comes out.
Well, I can't imagine why, right?
Here's what I want to do before we leave. Number one is we're going to get Tyler back on here because we've had a lot of episodes where I've told you about situations I was in that involved Tyler, like, the different depositions and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so, Tyler, we do want to get you back on because you and we've kind of been shoulder to shoulder in the foxhole and seen a lot. But I'm not going to let you get away today without one of my favorites, and I've told you about this, is it was one of the first major depositions that you went to cover for me, and you were with one of our friends, Lane Seisky.
Yeah.
And it was involved in a case where we won't say much about the case, but I
wish they could see his face right now.
Yeah. So, what was the one issue that I warned you about before you left, or that Lane said because you were
mentioning a court reporter bill?
What? That's right.
Mentioning it. Don't.
If you mention this,
right? There's gonna be a problem, right? Because there was a bill that this court reporter repeatedly sent to our office or to Lane's office. I'm not sure. I didn't know anything about it, and I don't write the check, so I don't really care. So I was like, okay, or maybe you told me to mention it. I don't remember. Whatever the case, Lane mentions the bill, and the attorney on the other side turns purple because he's so mad, and I don't know what in the world's going on because I'm clueless, and just goes off. I've told you I don't have anything to do, but yeah, that attorney is one of the probably 5th or 6th biggest law firm in the state of Kentucky, rode with this court reporter to every deposition. She rode in the same car with him, and she was his personal court reporter.
Yeah.
And she kept sending a bill, I guess.
That's what it was. And Lane knew that would get him going. And I told Tyler, I said, now watch. This is what I said, Tyler, if we get there and Lane mentions this, it may be bad. And Tyler gave me one of those, okay, yeah, whatever. And so Tyler, during those days, the instruction was, man, when you cover a deposition, give me a call, let me know how it went. I didn't get any substance out of Tyler. The first thing he said was, "Oh my God, this attorney just went off on the court reporter issue."
I mean, I still don't understand the issue there completely. I don't need to. I really don't care. But it was the strangest. I mean, we were in a doctor's office too, in southern Indiana somewhere. And I couldn't get out of there fast enough. It was the most, and if you obviously, I don't know if have ever met Lane.
Oh yeah,
Seisky,
yeah.
Right. And Lane, those situations don't bother Lane in the slightest. He kind of revels in that stuff. So
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like he did it on purpose for his own personal entertainment.
I'm sure.
He knows those issues that trigger people and is not afraid to trigger them. And that was what I knew. I was like, Tyler, I'm just going to think if this gets mentioned, it could get bad. And man, Lane didn't hold back. He asked, and it was over. And it was funny because what the funny part of it is when Tyler called me, I was expecting him to go, well, this deposition, the doctor said this, the doctor said that. It was, you were exactly. The court reporter issue came up, and he was like, so anyway,
and he went crazy.
So yeah, hey, Tyler does a lot for our clients. He like I said, just recently became a partner of the firm, and we have a lot in store in the future. We appreciate you, Tyler, and seriously, let's get back on and tell some stories. Some of our KJA stories would be good ones because we're allowed to talk about a lot of that stuff, or maybe they're not good stories.
I'm thinking about a couple of them right now. It's like, are you really sure that we need to be talking about
people
that?
Aren't any longer with the firm?
Yeah, right. Yes.
So,
yeah.
Anyway,
We'll just have one solid...
Shirtless on Bardstown Avenue, right?
That's right.
There's a tickler preview.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Hey, it's the end.
Yeah.
Valentine's
This got
Day.
awkward real fast.
Valentine's Day 2020. Valentine's Day 2021. Love is in the air, man.
It is.
Love is in the air.
And despite all those horrible jokes that I made, I very do much love Trina.
There's your Valentine's gift. You don't have to give her anything.
Oh, I'm definitely still going to have to get her something now.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. I'll get her like a Blu-ray player or something. She'll love it.
A Blu-ray player on Valentine's?
I'll put a heart on it.
Or is that for you?
No.
Yeah, right. There you go. There you go. I see how it is. All right. Hey, listen, this has been Law Lite.
I'll get her a Watchtower magazine.
Brought to you by...
I know what that is.
That is for the... that is for her religion, right?
Right.
Okay.
They pass them out at the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Like their
It's like
magazine.
their publication that they pass out when they go door to door. Which having a Jehovah's Witness in the house
is helpful.
When they come knock on the door, I go, oh, my wife's in the West congregation, and they're like, oh, we love Sister Starks, and then they're gone, and I can go right back to bed.
One time I was asked to become a Jehovah's Witness.
Really?
And I said I didn't see the accident. All right, this has been.
Oh God.
Law Lite, episode number whatever, Valentine's Day 2020, brought to you by FWH Legal at 530 Frederick Street, the high-rise White Tower. Bye.